for somebody who really loves Halo 4's story, I feel like when we're in saying Helios missions, I feel like we're back at that caliber a little bit more. You know, you have interaction with the Arbiter. You're doing it's an actual cool story. So I really like that. Of course, we both love the gameplay. We think the gameplay is amazing. We love the abilities, you know, the clamber, the thrust, all that stuff in campaign and during. But I guess once again I'm kind of fusing the campaign in there when I'm trying to focus more on the story. So story elements. We like the Arbiter coming back. We like the St. Helios arc. I would say I really enjoyed the first Blue Team mission on that space station, where they come in
that was
the
good.
window.
Had a great intro too.
Yeah, it was a good intro for them. I mean, the story of that is mostly, though, you know, Chief does have that vision with Cortana, which is a little silly there, but as far as like, basically what that level did was it tried to set up, we're going to give you Blue Team operating together on a mission that's kind of separate from the rest of the game. You know, because that mission doesn't really play too much into the whole bigger Guardian Cortana issue. So I like that aspect of the story. Let's see, other elements.
Well, if I can add to that, actually, I was going to say, just while we're on it, I always feel like there was so much, I mean, maybe they didn't actually get to do it, but I always feel like there was like maybe an act or like a mission or two kind of that maybe got cut that took place before the first mission for Osiris and then also Blue Team, because it's so weird how fast things happen. Like you get no context as to any of these characters for Osiris. It just goes into them and then they have the really cheesy dialogue and then they kind of Avengers kind of their way out into everything. And then with Blue Team in that one, it's really cool seeing how they're there and they're flying in space and they're firing their weapons and everything. They enter. That's awesome. But then, like you said, they get to Cortana right away, and it's like, well, there's no build up to Cortana. Like at least not a little bit. You're really going right into this. Oh, okay.
It still doesn't really feel like described to me properly, like what happens there, because what happens is in gameplay you're crossing a bridge in the space station and a hunter comes out, knocks the bridge, you fall, and then as Chief falls, he has this vision of Cortana telling him to come to Meridian, and then when he comes to, Blue Team's around him and Chief's like, I saw Cortana, she says go to Meridian, they're like, alright, sure. You know, so I'm like, did Chief pass out? Did he actually have something transmitted to him via the slot from Cortana's chip? Like, I never really... Like, do you know the answer, Josh? I feel like I don't.
Oh,
like,
I definitely don't. If anyone's going to know, it's you. So if you...
And we know...
no damn idea.
It wasn't just his mind making it up because it was true. I mean, it was Cortana. It was Meridian. So, you know...
Do you ever get past... You ever doing that part and you try to get past that hunter? You're just trying to get, like... There's always that part of you that's like, I can get to the end of the bridge, and then the hunter shows up.
I'm going to jump right beforehand. The hunter's going to fall, and he's going to have a Cortana.
Game's like,
I'm going to
no.
go play. No.
Or you would say, a whole lot of no from me.
Whole lot of no from me, dog. Yeah, so I know we're kind of already a little branching into the bad there. I know there's more bad than good in the Halo 5 story for us, but Josh, can you think of other elements of the story that you liked?
Okay. Now, it didn't get executed super well, but I love the obvious approach to the duality between the old versus the new, you know, and you see that come to fruition in that head-to-head match. And again, I know most people don't like that, and I'm in the same boat, but I like the approach to it at least, because it very much... there's so many things nowadays that have that kind of feel where we're in that soft reboot stage, right? So you have, like, you know, returning faces from things that make us feel nostalgic, and then you got, like, new characters trying to sort of champion that stuff forward into a new era. And it didn't feel like that in Halo 5 to a plus. Like, I never really felt throughout the campaign like they're trying to squeeze Chief out somehow and retire him and then move Locke and Osiris into the fold. It felt like, you know, it did feel like Halo 2 in a different way in terms of just the different duality. Like, where
I think it felt more like a side game than a mainline game. Because
I would definitely agree.
Because having a whole squad with you, having squad mechanics, having most of the game be play as characters you've never seen except for Buck, it felt like something that would have been a side game. You know, that's what...
It only feels like that, though, to me by the end of it. Like, I mean, when I'm getting through most of it, there's that part of me, like, if I'm looking at it objectively and I'm playing through for the first time, it's like, okay, I don't know when I'm getting to Chief, and then I get to Chief, and I don't, you know, for all I know, I'm thinking, like, okay, I'm going to play as him in the next level, and I don't. And it's constantly that, I guess, disappointment, but...
Yeah.
I just like the duality it has going for it, and just how sort of... You like... Chief is at a point in his life where he's very much like, I've got a bit more confidence in the ability to kind of go against what the UNSC says, and that kind of sucks in a way how easily
is that
does it.
Is that a positive or a negative to you that Chief goes quote unquote able?
Well, okay, I look at it two different. I guess I see there's two different sides to it to me. I can't choose one because it's bad for obvious reasons, because coming off the Halo 4 one, which was awesome, this one he does it right away. There's like no, again, build up to that. It just feels like too soon.
Yeah.
So that seems bad. It seems like now he's just going to pick and choose his battles. I don't like that. However, I like it in the sense that you definitely get, you have a Spartan being Chief that's like far more experienced, and he's carries such reputation. He's like Captain America, in terms of his legacy and the impact he's made on people in the UNSC.
Going against orders gives him more humanity.
Right, exactly. And then you have Locke, who's very much this by-the-book dude who used to be just an ODST and kind of worked his way up into the Spartan program. So it's very different approaches with very different personalities and very different mindsets. And I like that. I like that approach. Even though it didn't land super well, I can still feel it running throughout that game.
Yeah. I think I have two more things about the story I really enjoy, and that kind of wraps it up for me. I think a total about... that sounds horrible.
It does sound horrible.
But I think I have about four things total.
You're like, I got about, we were like a few minutes into the episode, I got about two more things I can say positive.
Well, I mean, like I said here, we're not going to be disrespectful, but we're also not going to lie. Like, I mean, Halo 5 was a very disappointing story. There's about four things I really love, and that's the St. Helios arc, which I already covered, the Blue Team mission at the beginning on the space station, and here's the other two things I really loved. I really loved that, to me, Halo 5 feels like the most universe-spanning Halo game of all of them to me. And it's funny because Halo Infinite is going the opposite direction, is where everyone's like, we want to be back to, even me, we want to be back to a Halo ring. We're just going to be on a Halo ring the whole time, which is awesome. But in Halo 5, you go to the planet Kamchatka, you go to the planet Genesis, you go to the planet Meridian, you go to St. Helios. It's at least, four...
It's certainly a galaxy-hopping adventure.
Yeah, and of course, then you go to the space station with Blue Team. Yeah, I think that sums up all of the places.
Well, more or less, you're getting the point across. I mean, for sure, that you definitely...
It just feels like you're all over the universe.
Yeah, you're definitely going...
I love that concept of playing a campaign where I'm just like... I mean, it's a bad comparison, but it's almost like Mass Effect. Mass Effect makes me feel like I'm in space and I can go to all these different planets. Halo 5 was the closest to that, where it's like, oh, I'm on Meridian. It's almost like you thinking like Rogue One. You know how like in Rogue One where they'd be on a planet and there'd be like the title card thing where it shows the planet from the distance and it shows that the bottom in white text, it shows the planet. That's kind of how Halo 5 was.
No, I agree, Brian. I think that's actually an excellent point, because when you get to something like Meridian, even though those levels feel a little weird because you're just walking around with some of that stuff in the game, it does a lot to set up for like exposition in the galaxy. I mean, how often do you go to other planets, that like something like Reach in its prime that actually had civilization there? Like, you're just walking around, there's people talking and living and everything like that. Like, that's pretty crazy. We never really quite got to experience that because it's constantly always been one battle after the next in these Halo games. So that was pretty unique into itself.
Yeah, and then that's kind of to spin off from that. The final thing I really enjoyed was that Halo 5 did a good job of making me feel like I was seeing a universe that took place post the Halo original trilogy. Even better than Halo 4, because Halo 4 was like...
It's isolated in a way.
Yeah, we show up on this planet no one knew about, and it's a conflict all over again. Sure. But in Halo 5, it's like, okay, we go to Meridian, and they're trying to break the glass. The planet had been glassed by the Covenant back in the war. So they're trying to break the glass and make it rehabitable. That's awesome. You hear, like, Tanaka talking about her history and stuff. Then you have like St. Helios. Obviously, that planet's not the same because the Covenant's at war with each other. The Covenant and the Swords of St. Helios, and you just kind of feel that world state is different. So I think they did a good job of making it feel, post original Halo trilogy, and even having Blue Team be on a mission at a station that's like irrelevant to the Guardians plot was pretty neat. It just felt like, okay, well, humanity saved again. Now Blue Team's back doing their regular missions like you would have expected them doing in Fall of Reach. So a lot of good ideas there and good moments, but it just... We're going to move into the bad, unless you have something else good
just
to
one.
say. That. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just one. I just really love the characters. I think of that scene where Osiris is talking about Blue Team, and they talk about how they're like family and everything like that. And there's so much of the game that I think is a reflection of this attempt to do a lot of world building. Again, you have the you have Blue Team, who has known one another for pretty much their whole lives, and they're very tight knit. The closest thing they have to family. Then you have Osiris, who is people who come from all different places with at different points in their experience, so to speak. But roughly they're around the same age, and they're still kind of figuring things out. So I just love how it's fun how the game tries to play off of that, and I like getting to play as like some newcomers. I like Vale's personality. I like all the individual personalities, even on Blue Team side. I feel like you get more personality out of Osiris than you do Blue Team, but some of that leaves me a little biased because I actually get to see the faces of Osiris, and I'm glad I don't get to see the faces.
I'm really glad you touched on that, Josh, because actually that's another good aspect I didn't say it on purpose, but I'm glad you said it now, because another good aspect for me is Team Osiris. I got a couple different points to this. I would actually say Team Osiris specifically, because Blue Team, if you remove everything you know about Blue Team from extended material, they're not interesting in the game at all. They don't have much personality. You don't see their faces. They all look similar. They don't have much personality. So I actually don't. I love the Blue Teams there because of my history with the exterior media. But as a game itself, I don't think they're the greatest. Team Osiris, and that's another reason why I didn't mention it. Team Osiris is one of the things that people talk crap about all the time. They say that it's bad about the game, but I actually really like Team Osiris. I don't want to see them as the main characters in a mainline story, but I do want to see them more like Halo 2, where years later people go, after not liking the Arbiter, years later people go, oh man, I like that character. It was just hard to see him share the spotlight with Chief.
Hindsight.
And, I wouldn't say that Locke was done as well as Arbiter, but when I think about the Nightfall movie with him, and then I think about how when Halo 5 starts, Locke is respected by the rest of Team Osiris. They trust him. You can see Buck, even he's older, but you can tell Buck is like, Locke is a better soldier than me, or he's the one that I follow. He's the leader. I like Locke. Locke seems he seems respectable. He seems nice. And then when he goes after Chief, he's just doing his job as a soldier, and Chief is the one that's going against orders. So even though you get to the fight scene and that wasn't the greatest and all, and I know he kind of has a quick heel turn of helping Chief, but still he's respectable. He follows orders, and then at the end, him and the rest of Team Osiris, they're doing everything they can to save Chief and Blue Team from the cryptum they're put in. And at the end, he's completely on Chief's side, and he takes Chief back to Halsey at the end of the game. And I just like Locke. I really do. So.
It's funny how some of this, as you're talking, reminds me of some of the recent, pretty much Falcon and Winter Soldier with the whole old Cap versus new Cap.
Yeah.
Just one of them's very much by the book and just going by how he was trained, and this other one's whole different upbringing. Yeah. So yeah.
Also, he's ex-Oni. They don't really touch on that much, but that's a cool thing.
Yes, that's a cool thing, and to add to that, there's just no pleasing people with some of that stuff, because I think it's ultimately what we got in terms of their personalities between both is the best possible outcome. I don't think how they are should have any bearing on the actual overall opinion of the game, because look, Blue Team, if they had such distinct personalities and they were really goofy and everything, people would have been upset, and people would have said, this isn't like Blue Team in the books.
Yeah.
So even though they're kind of bland and one-dimensional, it's that's very much how they were raised. It's not like they had time to watch movies and listen to music too much. I know Kelly's got some stuff, but still. Anyway, then you have Osiris, who's a lot more. They're definitely different walks of life by comparison, and it makes sense to see their faces. It makes sense for them to have a bit more personality. So I mean, it's there's just no way around it. But they're definitely more likable, I think. Mm-hmm. So.
So I think we pretty much covered the things we like. So there really is a lot. Think about it. We covered large swaths of that story with the things we liked. It's just what I find is when I start to think about the bad, there's just too many problems. It starts compounding. It's even if I've played games before where something happens where I really go, ugh, that was bad. But it's just one thing, and I can kind of get past it.
Like the T-pose you just recently had in Andromeda.
Andromeda, yeah. But with Halo 5, it's okay, bad thing, and at some point you just go, I can't take anymore, and still say I like this story a lot.